our previous session where we talked about AWS Code Guru and how integrating with AWS Code Guru service, you can get to know about various recommendations with respect to your code quality, along with some of the security vulnerabilities. So previous session was all about how do we access AWS Code Guru from the management console. And also we did a small demo wherein what we did, we raised a pull request and we scanned that particular pull request using AWS Code Guru. So let me quickly share my screen and take you to what we did in our previous session. So if you remember, we had created this particular branch, demo talent 500, and we saw that for this particular pull request, there were a lot of recommendation raised by AWS Code Guru, and same recommendation we could see on the management console. And we also discussed why it's important to have everything on the PR itself, so that in future also, if you want to refer to the review comment kind of vulnerabilities we saw, we can always go back to the PR and see these discussions, conversation around the vulnerabilities. Now today what we are going to do is we'll learn how we can integrate same thing with our Jenkins pipeline. So if you remember, in our previous session we discussed about this diagram, right, wherein you once a code commit is done, your Jenkins pipeline would trigger. It would build your code. Okay. So the here we are going to use a Jenkins job. So a jar file would get generated, and on that jar file, your AWS Code Guru Reviewer CLI would be run, and that would publish recommendation. Now, what you can do is based on the number of critical vulnerabilities you are getting, either you can fail your build, stop your build, or you can say, okay, if the vulnerabilities are less than one or less than five, you can proceed ahead with the next steps, right? So I had done couple of builds already, and one thing to notice is if you read certain things, they might sound very simple. Even when I'm going to give you the demo, you might feel it's very simple. It's just a 3-4 step process. But actually, when you start doing it, you end up encountering a lot of issues. If you see, I did 60 build to get this running. So I was facing issues with respect to permission, with respect to syntax, etc. So it's always advisable that you do more of a hands-on, and you in the process you learn a lot of things. It's not just about, okay, what is given there, copy pasting it and doing it, right? So let's get started. Let me share what we'll do today, though I've already given you a kind of an overview. Okay. So we'll integrate with Jenkins, and we'll see the vulnerabilities in the Jenkins job itself. So some of the prerequisites would be everything I have done it on EC2 instance. So if you want, you can also do same thing, or you can do it on your system. But yes, I faced one challenge while using a free tier. That a lot of time my CPU was spiking up to 99% while running these jobs. So I had to restart my servers again and again. Okay. And also, when you do your code review, that for that also you'll be charged. So ensure when your job is running or when you're practicing uh, this particular demo, you check those informations very clearly, wherein they tell you, okay, what would be the pricing if you go for a full scan versus a scan of a particular PR or a particular commit. Yep. So I have restricted my scan to the commit ID. Okay. And I'm not going for a full scan. So what are the things I had to set up on my system? When I say on my system, on my EC2 instance, so I had to install Maven, I had to install Java, I had to install AWS CLI, okay, Git, because before running everything on the Jenkins, I was doing test run on my console as well, right? Directly don't jump onto the Jenkins part. First, make sure everything is up and running on your system itself, right? So these are like all the prerequisites. Same thing is mentioned on the doc. Okay. Yeah. You need to create certain IAM roles Okay, I'll show you these roles. We had also discussed all about these roles, permissions, policies in our previous session as well. Okay, and then we'll set up our repository. Okay, we'll create a Jenkins job. After build, we want to execute the code review scan. Yeah, and yeah, s- again, once the scan is done, you can refer to the link where you will see all the recommendation based on your requirement. You can either fail the build in case you find the vulnerabilities, or you can continue with the build. It's all up to your implementation. But ideally, the purpose of adding this scan in the build process is to not push the build to the next environment until somebody has actually taken a look at all those vulnerabilities and recommendation. Yeah. So yeah, you analyze, take the action on the vulnerabilities, whether you want to fix it or it's okay to move ahead. And you can add your quality gates. I'll show you using a library how you can read that JSON file, and based on the count or a matching of certain pattern or certain type of a security, you can fail your builds. Okay. And finally, as usual, whatever you do it, you have to clean up, right? So let's go to the demo itself. Yeah. Okay. So this is my EC2 instance. Okay. Let me tell you how I'm sure by now you would know how to connect. But let me just, for a revision purpose, take you back here. So what I did is I went to North Virginia. There I created my instance. Before creating instance, I had created some of the users. So let me give you a walkthrough of those users and what kind of permissions or policies are associated. Okay, this is my user DevSecOps. Okay, and this, we've associated this policy named as, again, DevSecOps, and you'll see this particular policy gives you access to three AWS services, which is S3, IAM, and CodeGuru Reviewer. And what you have to do is when you create your EC2 instance. So first is these IAM role. Second, if you remember, we have to create an S3 bucket as well, because what happens, the CodeGuru Reviewer does the scan on the build. Okay, so where actually you are doing the build and you are doing the build on Jenkins, and then the artifact you are going to put it on S3. Okay. Let me show you the S3 bucket as well. Okay. So this is your bucket. Yeah. It has prefix as Code Guru Reviewer, and this was created for one of the test job which I was telling you that I did before starting the session. Okay. So we've created IAM role. We've created a bucket. Okay. With a bucket, we've associated a policy. If you remember, again, this we had discussed in our previous session. Okay. So there is a bucket policy allowed. Yeah. And you've provided the ARN of this particular S3 bucket. Um, Role is done. S3 bucket is done. What's next? EC2 instance. Okay. Let's go to EC2 instance. And let me show you all those prerequisites which has been installed on this system. Okay, so how do you select this? Go to connect. There are various ways to connect. I'm doing through Instance Connect itself, but if you want, you can do it through PuTTY or your any SSH agent, etc. Okay, let's see our prerequisites. Okay, so I said we had to install Git. Yeah, so you've Git. We had to install Java. Java is there. Okay. Then we had to install AWS CLI. Oh, this is not the correct way to check. Um, Let me show you here. Yeah. Okay. So you have AWS CLI. If you want, you can upgrade it to 2.10, the latest version. I left it as it is. For me, since I was doing all these experiment on EC2, so I didn't had to actually install AWS CLI. It's already available. But if you plan to do it on your system, then you might have to do the configuration for these. And yeah, Maven as well. Okay. So these are the things which I did on. Also, we have created one IAM user, right? And one IAM role. So where do you associate it? You have to associate it with your EC2 instance, right? So what you can do is, if you forgot to add, go to action, security, modify IAM role, DevSecOps is the role which we've associated with this instance. And this has access to your other services like CodeGuru, etc. Okay. And one more thing we did, specifically in my cases, Jenkins I've set up here. So in the security group, I had to expose port 8080 because that's where your Jenkins listen, right? So network. So if you go to this security group and you'll check, okay, let me see. Okay. Okay, that's fine. We can. So this is my security group. And if you go, you can see all the inbound and outbound and port, etc. See, I've opened the port 8080, right? So we are done with the basic setup, which was to create a EC2 instance. On that, have all these prerequisites, Java, Maven, Git, and then create a IAM user associated with a policy which has access to IAM code guru reviewer and your S3 bucket. Also, the next step was to create an S3 bucket with a specific prefix. That prefix is again mentioned here in the section below. Okay. Yeah. So this has to be the prefix. Okay. And yeah. So once you, okay, the main thing I am missing to tell you. Also, you have to install AWS Code Guru CLI, right? So from where you can install this, the link is already given here. Okay, you can go to the links provided here. Hold on. Yeah, so you can, if you go to this link, this has your latest version of AWS Code Guru CLI. And also, if you don't want to go here, they have already provided you with the steps. Okay. So what is it that, okay, you need to go on this, no, yeah, here is the code for AWS Code Guru installation. Yeah. So once you've done all these things, we did this previously. So once you've done the installation, do a sample test run. Okay. So go to a path where your AWS CLI is present, clone any sample Git repository, build that code, and on that particular code, run following command. This command would start the scan for you. Okay. If everything is set up correctly, you'll be able to do a test run on your system, irrespective of Jenkins. Okay. All this are your target dash. These are the location of your jar file or specific code file which you want to review, right? And remember, in previous session we also talked about AWS Code Guru YAML file, wherein you can specify what you want to exclude from the review itself. Like you just want to review a test file, or you want to review a specific class, etc. So that also you can specify in that file, right? Now coming to a Jenkins, which is the agenda for our today's session. Okay, so what you'll do, how do you open Jenkins? I've already opened it, but for an EC2 instance, how do you open it? Go to your instance. Okay, and then you do port 8080. Yeah, so I'm already logged in. Okay, but for you, if you'll be logging for the first time, you'll see a screen wherein you'll be given a location of a key which you need to enter. So take that location, do cat, come to your EC2 instance, cat, mention the, which is like, which contains your initial password. So once you uh, uh, follow these step itself, you'll know what to do next. Okay, so go to the public IP address port 8080. You'll get a screen with a location of initial password. Using cat, find out that initial password from EC2 instance, and then you install, do the basic installation. But that won't work. You need to install some more plugin. Okay, so how do you install those plugin? Once you log in, go to manage Jenkins. Okay, plugin, and you can see all the available plugins. So I had to install Maven, I had to install AWS credentials. Okay, so those are the plugins I had to install. So you can install it from here. Okay, so example AWS credential. Oh, that I'll find it in the install section, AWS credentials. So see, this is installed. Then I had to install Maven plugin. Okay, so this is also installed. And one more thing you have to do is you have to specify the uh, Maven, etc. Right? So tools. These you would have done it previously as well, but yeah. So you have to do Maven installation. So if I edit and show you, okay. So this is 3.9.4. This is same, which is available here. Okay. Where is our instance connect? Okay, here it is. So if you do mvn dash dash version, okay, 3.9.4. Quickly, let's recap what all we did. Created a EC2 instance. On that EC2 instance, we associated a IAM role named as DevSecOps, which has all the required access for accessing the S3 code guru and other IAM user, etc. Also on this EC2 instance, we install certain softwares like your Git, Maven, Java, and we also installed Jenkins. Okay, so after installing the Jenkins, we took the public IP address and opened it in one of the tab, and then we were given the location of initial password. We picked that location, came to EC2 instance, connect, did cat and provided that part. You got the key. Okay, and so once you add the key to your Jenkins, you'll be able to proceed. You'll do some installation. Some by default, some plugins would be installed, but on top of that, you need to install plugins like Maven, AWS credentials, etc. Okay. Once you've done that, you have to do basic settings. So I went ahead and did the Maven installation. And one more thing you have to do is you have to set up the AWS credentials, right? So where do you find it? It should be somewhere here in the credentials. Okay. So these are my AWS credentials. Remember in our previous session, we talked about how do you set up these. So this, why do we need key, right? To programmatically access certain AWS services, right? In previous session, we were accessing everything through management console, but in this session, we are programmatically going to access certain stuff, and for that we need credentials. So you can set that credentials here. I'll show you in the Jenkins pipeline where I have used these credentials. You guys, yeah. Till now, all clear. Now let's go to our Jenkins job. Okay, so what you have to do is go ahead, create new item, name it anything. I've already done the setup, but just to show you. Okay, and what kind of a job we are picking pipeline. Name it anything. Okay, this is for demo purpose. Okay, pipeline. Now from where you can get the pipeline script. Okay, so if you go here at the bottom, they've given all these things, right? It consists of 3 stages. Build stage, where simply you're cloning a repository. They are cloning Amazon Code Reviewer Java Detector, but we'll continue with our previous repo itself, which we had cloned, which is this one, AWS Code Guru Reviewer Sample App. Yeah, so because previous demo also we had done on this particular repo itself, right? So we'll make those changes. Yeah. So this is simply the first step is all about build. So you clone it, you run this particular thing. Yeah. And yeah, use this in case you're using a Windows agent, a minus Linux. Then you move to the code reviewer section wherein you're just specifying your certain variables like, okay, location of your repo. Okay. Then location of SRC file, and output file is where you want to store the result of the recommendations. Okay. And here you'll see instead of doing a full scan, we are providing the commit range. So you need to replace all of these. I've replaced it, so I'll show you. And then this is the final section wherein what they're doing is the file, the JSON file which gets created named as recommendation.json. We are scanning that file and we're looking for things like this: severity, critical. And if this count is greater than 0, we need to stop the build. Yeah. So again, we are just checking these things. You can look for other stuff as well. Okay, simply we're counting uh, all those JSON objects, etc., where severity is equal to critical, and if it's greater than 0, you'll fail the bit. Okay. Yeah. So you just copy paste that script, apply, save. When you will build this, if everything is correct, all syntax is fine, you'll be able to run the job. Okay. Uh, Again, I would say this is manual, but ideally everything would be integrated. Like you don't have to manually trigger anything. Moment there would be a build, there would be a code commit, a PR would be raised. For a PR, you can go ahead and initiate these builds. Okay. So let me go to the job which I've already created, which is Code Guru pipeline. Okay. So let me show you all the steps. Okay. Here I'm keeping a build just for 1 day, and maximum build I'm keeping is 5. That's fine. And this is my pipeline. So see, I have to make certain changes, right? I have to provide the AWS credentials, okay, which is not specified here. Okay. Then this is the location of the repo. Then if you just simply run, at least in my case, this was not working. I had to provide the version of the Maven, and where all I had specified. Again, this was done using Jenkins F. I showed you right away, just few minutes back, right? And then this is the section where actually your build would be validated with respect to vulnerabilities, etc. Yeah. And here you can see the commit range. Like this is like my previous and this is my current. So for the diff, I want to run a vulnerability check. And for now, I have just commented this code because this particular PR, it does have one uh, recommendation where severity is critical. So my build would stop. I'll show you the previous build where I didn't comment this particular thing, right? So where the moment our job found a recommendation with criticality, with severity as critical, the build was stopped. Okay. Yeah, so this is like previous build, the build 59. Here I didn't comment the check finding section. Okay, so this was stopped. Yeah, and but the last one here I had commented and just printing simple check critical finding here. Okay, so now see, this is the file recommendations.json. On that, this code is run. the last section, which is commented. See, so this particular section looks for this file recommendation.json, and it counts how many. See, it's counting how many critical syntax you are getting, critical word you are getting in that JSON file. And if it's greater than 0, it's stopping your build. Okay. So let's go ahead and build this particular job. You can open the file as well. Okay, so build is done. See, it needs a S3 bucket. Do one thing. See, I told you the issues which I faced, but to start with, just go by what's mentioned here, okay, on this particular page. Yeah. And try replicating it. If you are able to run it in one go, do let me know in the comment, because for me it didn't work in one go. I'll be very honest here. It took me some time, uh, but and then that helped me learn more stuff about things. I already have a working Jenkins pipeline with me, right? So I can share that later with you, right? So, but first I want that you go ahead and just follow what is mentioned here. It's very simple. Like the steps are really simple, but once you implement here and there, in fact, since you'll be copying stuff, you end up making some syntaxis issues also. But that's also a way to learn itself. If anything works in one go, trust me, you won't remember anything and you won't learn anything. So if anything is failing, you should feel excited, and that is an opportunity for you to learn. So where is our job? Yeah. So the build is done. Now the review is going on. I'll show you that JSON file which gets created, and I'll show you that block severity equal to critical. It's taking some time. So should we quickly revise what all we did? Or yeah, the previous took 2 minutes 58 seconds. Mm. Do you see about one thing about these pipeline jobs? You get average time as well, like what is the average time of each stage and what is the average time for full stage. So if anything is very critical, and you see that your build of any stage is going beyond that average time, that's also an indication that something is wrong, either with the code or with your job, or at times, like for me, there was a lot of times while running this job, my CPU went up to 99%, right? So from where do you see all those things? So in on EC2 instance only, there's this section monitoring, right? These are like basics. If you want, you can have a detailed monitoring, but everything comes with a cost, right? So you see these, there were like, let me 3 hours. Let me show you for 3 hours. Do you see these spikes? So for certain build, I saw a lot of CPU spikes. Yeah, see. So you can see I've been doing this demo from 3-4 hours. Okay, and you see there were a lot of CPU hikes here. Okay. Okay, yeah. So the build is done. Now, if you go to console, you see a location. Yeah, this recommendation.json file. Okay. In case, see, if I would go ahead and uncomment that section where we are counting, counting the number of severity, which is equal to critical. So our build would be stopped, right? Because I'll show you why. Because there is at least one or two recommendations where severity is critical, and from where you can see this. Okay, go to your EC2 instance. Okay. cd var lib Jenkins workspace. Yeah. Go to pipeline ls. Do you see this output file? Yeah. How did this output directory got created? Refer to this section here. The second section, what we are doing. See, we are storing the result of the run into a file named as output. Okay. So we are storing everything in this output file. Okay. So output, and let me see. You get a HTML report as well, and then you get your recommendations in the JSON format. So now if you read this, let's look for severity medium, and there is one with severity as critical. Okay. Again, you can have checks on things like description uh, and other things as well, rule name, etc. Okay. Yeah. And let me go ahead and uncomment the this section, right? This time our build would fail. Okay. See, in fact, it stops the moment it sees. Right. See. Okay. So meanwhile, this is running. Another way to know more about Code Guru reviewer is looking at the troubleshooting questions, right? So you go to just AWS and Amazon Code Guru user guide. There you'll have this section, troubleshooting section. You can read through it, or in case you face any issue, you can find the solution here, right? Where can I check the status of repository association? Where can I check the status of the code review? My repositories and associated. So all this we did previously. Remember, manually we did the association of our repository with AWS Code Guru Reviewer. But right now, when we are running the Jenkins job, we don't have to do all those stuffs manually. Yeah. And for that only you need those AWS credentials. So that is being done programmatically. Okay. Why did my association fail? What if I disagree with recommendation? So a lot of things are mentioned here. So you can go and read about it. Okay. Let's see what is the status of our build. One more thing I forgot to show you is like where is build. So remember there S3 bucket gets created where you store the build, and on that build artifact, your analysis is done. So your code guru reviewer does the analysis on that. So from where you can find those location, it's here in the console. See, started new code guru reviewer scan. Copy this. Yeah. So this was done at 9 around 690. Okay. And you can see same recommendation. I showed you the JSON file, but similar thing you can find it here. Okay. There are two recommendations. Hmm. Yeah. So this would fail because of that check. Anything else I can tell you meanwhile? Okay. This we talked about previously. Same thing what is mentioned on this document can be found here as well. You can find all these stuff here. Okay. And yeah, these are your, I hope you all know how do you create these access key and secret ID. Just go to the user. Okay. And then security credentials, and there you go ahead and you can create. I already have created one. If you want, you can go ahead and create another access key. So this is how you create the access key as well. This is from our previous demo, right? In the PR itself, we see the recommendation. And troubleshooting step. Anything else? Yeah, here under S3 bucket, you see all the analysis which is being done. Yeah, yeah. This is it. Okay. Yeah, see this failed. Why this failed? Because I had now I had uncommented the code to count how many vulnerabilities are there, right? So it found one. So it the check is valid, which is greater than 0, and it stopped my build. Okay, so that's it for today. What next after this is I'll do the cleanup, which is like I'll go ahead and terminate my EC2 instance. Yeah. So let's finally recap what all we studied today. So let me bring my PPT up again. Okay. Prerequisite. So what all are a prerequisite? Having Git, Java, Maven, AWS CLI, and your Jenkins on your EC2 instance. You need to fork the GitHub repository for that sample app. We had done it previously. If you've come directly to this particular video, I would recommend you watch the previous session on the Code Guru reviewer. Okay. Yeah. So once you've forked it on your account, install Jenkins. Make sure you open the port 8080 and you associate a IAM role with permissions of EC2, S3 code, Guru reviewer, etc. You create the credentials, which would help you programmatically access the AWS services. Yeah, this is how do you set up a repository. This is like manually you can check on your local before going ahead and creating a Jenkins job. The Jenkins job is very simple. It consists of 3 stage: the build stage, review stage, and finally checking the recommendations. Okay. Yeah. And then you can take a decision what you have to do on the recommendation and vulnerabilities. And after that, again, here we've put a quality gate that it should be 0. The recommendations of vulnerabilities should be 0. Not recommendations, sorry, vulnerabilities should be 0. But if you know that certain vulnerabilities are known, you can change that number accordingly. And then you finally go ahead and deassociate your GitHub repo and you terminate your EC2 instance. Yeah. So thank you, everyone. See you in the next session. But yeah, make sure first you go ahead and copy things which are mentioned on that documentation. Okay, just follow the steps. And then you run a job, you'll see failures. So nothing to worry. Okay, you can always post your questions or queries in the comment section. I'll have a look and answer back to you. But on the internet also, you'll find these solutions of those particular problems. Okay, so yeah, see you in the next session. Bye. Have a great weekend.